Deforestation and forest degradation can cause biodiversity to decline. When forest cover is removed, wildlife is deprived of habitat and becomes more vulnerable to hunting. Considering that about 80% of the world's documented species can be found in tropical rainforests, deforestation puts at risk a majority of the Earth's biodiversity. Deforestation causes 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Of these, carbon dioxide emissions represent up to 1/3 total carbon dioxide emissions released because of human causes. As a result of deforestation, trees no longer evaporate groundwater, which can cause local climate to be much drier. Deforestation accelerates rate of soil erosion by increasing runoff and reducing the protection of soil from tree litter. Millions of people rely directly on forests through small-scale agriculture, hunting and gathering, and by harvesting forest products such as rubber. Deforestation continues to pose severe social problems, sometimes leading to violent conflict.
You can plant trees or buy the timber rights to an acre of land, or make donations to causes
For protecting the rainforest.
Ancient forests maintain the balance of life on Earth. They house around 2/3 of the world's land-based species of plants and animals. The remaining tracts of forests influence day-to-day weather, but also help to keep the climate stable over time. Tropical forests cover only 7% of the world's land surface, but they store vast amounts of carbon. Logging and burning releases that carbon into the atmosphere, contributing to climate change. Tropical deforestation accounts for an astounding 20% of worldwide greenhouse gas emissions. That's more than all of the aeroplanes, cars and trains put together.
Forests cover 31% of our planet. They produce vital oxygen and provide shelter for people and wildlife. Many of the world's most threatened and endangered species live amongst these forests. Roughly 1.6 billion people rely on the resources forests have to offer, which include lumber, food, fresh water, and medicines. But the rapid deforestation produces a threat to these resources. Deforestation comes in many ways, including fires, clear-cutting for agriculture, urban development, and constant logging for timber. This impacts and threatens a wide range of plant and animal species. About 46 to 58,000 square miles of forest are lost each year, equivalent to 36 football fields every minute. Not only does deforestation impact endangered species, but it's estimated that 15% of all greenhouse gas emissions are the result of deforestation. Deforestation is a particular concern in tropical rainforests because they are home to much of the world's biodiversity. Rainforests cover less than 6% of the Earth's surface, but the amount destroyed each year equals the size of the state of New York. For example, in the Amazon, about 17% of the forest has been lost in the last 50 years. Animals are in danger because the rainforests themselves are in danger. In addition to habitat loss, the endangered animals must also compete with human hunters, who often kill them for their meat, fur, feathers, and body parts. The world's rainforests are home to not just individual animals that are going extinct, but entire groups and species of endangered animals.
We are getting ice forming much later in the year and breaking up much earlier in the year. We're getting insects that have never been up here in the Arctic before. We're getting birds, species of birds and fish that have not been up here before. Our whole world is being altered up here in the Arctic, and I think the world has to pay heed to that.
Polar bears rely on the sea ice to hunt, breed, and in some cases den. Changes in their distribution or numbers affect the entire Arctic ecosystem. The chief threat to the polar bears is the loss of sea ice habitats due to global warming. According to the Smithsonian Institute, over 1,200 plant and animal species are endangered or threatened with the possibility of becoming endangered, and that is just in America alone. But we're the only ones who can fix this situation. On the road to recovery, major functions would be to coordinate clearly defined objectives such as hunting methods and especially the way we utilize our
We have some significant challenges ahead of us. I think global climate change is going to turn everybody on their heads. What areas will become richer in wildlife? What areas will become more barren?
Polar bears, they are endangered. Polar bears are not threatened by other animals or even because they are being too heavily hunted by humans. Instead, it is the way that we humans have destroyed the environment that has essentially endangered polar bears. The biggest threat to polar bears is climate change. The Arctic habitat that polar bears call home is melting away. Increasing numbers in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has caused temperatures to warm. This situation is called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect occurs when gases in the atmosphere trap the sun's radiation. Like a greenhouse, this makes the planet warmer and makes the Earth's temperature rise. The increase of Earth's temperatures has made Arctic regions start to melt. Polar bears depend on the Arctic's icy region for its food.
I'm Doug Inkley, the National Wildlife Federation Senior Scientist. I work for the Federation to address the issue of climate change and how it impacts wildlife. But today, they're facing threats, and I'd like to talk to you about that. You know, most people don't think of bears as animals that live in the ocean, but the polar bear is actually a marine mammal. So what's happening with global warming is, as the sea ice is melting, the polar bear habitat is just plain disappearing. But what's so important about the sea ice for polar bears? Polar bears feed almost entirely on seals. The seals come up out of the water into the breathing holes that are formed in the ice, and it is there that the polar bears are able to capture the seals. In open water without ice, a polar bear is not able to capture a seal. So without sea ice, there's no way to feed, and then there's no polar bears.
A study done in 2009 resulted in the new information that suggested that mercury was found in the body systems of polar bears that lived in the Arctic. When a polar bear eats an animal carrying mercury in their body, the mercury is then passed into the system of the polar bear. By the time that the food is eaten, the mercury could have a deadly effect on the polar bear. Mercury from soil and ocean waters have accumulated from human activities and is emptied into the Arctic Ocean. To solve this problem of mercury in sea animals, the short-term effect of polar bears going extinct would directly impact local zoos and fishing industries. Fish numbers would increase because of the number of polar bears eating them would go down. This environmental effect, the damaging of the food chain, is also a possible outcome of the extinction of polar bears. Animal activists from a zoo in Toronto have taken action in fighting to prevent the extinction of polar bears.